I was 12 the summer that Kethrai came to Seco. The colony wasn't much. 41 families spread across a valley that got too hot in June and too cold by the end of September, with a grain cooperative my grandmother had helped charter 30 years before I was born. She ran the eastern plots, 4 long row fields of a hybrid sorghum that didn't mind the alkaline soil. I helped when she asked. When she didn't ask, I sat on the porch and watched Dutch sleep. Dutch was 14 that summer, brindle coat gone mostly gray, white around the muzzle, hips that took him 3 tries to stand on cold mornings. Mixed breed, part shepherd, part something nobody had ever bothered to name. He'd been on the homestead since before I existed. By the time I was old enough to throw a ball for him, he was already too old to bring it back. He'd watch it land in the dust, look at me with one good eye, and put his chin back on his paws. That was Dutch. He slept on the porch from sunup to sundown, moved once to follow the shade, and ate whatever my grandmother set in his bowl. His left eye had gone cloudy the winter before. His ribs showed when he stretched. He smelled like warm dust and old blankets, and when he breathed you could hear it from the steps. A slow, rattling pull that had become as much a part of the porch as the creak in the third board. The Kethrai arrived in 3 survey transports on a Tuesday. I remember it was a Tuesday because my grandmother had the grain dryer running and she only ran it Tuesdays and Fridays. The transports came low from the east, settled in the dirt road past the cooperative, and dropped their ramps before the dust had cleared. I had never seen a Kethrai in person. Tall, 8 feet, maybe taller, with gray-green skin plated along the jaw and forearms. Their uniforms were the color of wet slate, close-fitted, with no insignia I could read. They moved in pairs, efficient and unhurried, the way people move when they've already decided they own whatever they're walking toward. 9 of them. The one in front carried a survey rod, a silver instrument as long as he was tall, with a sensor array at the tip that pulsed a slow, steady blue. My grandmother came out of the dryer shed, wiping her hands on her apron. She watched the column for a moment, her face carrying the flat expression she used for weather she couldn't change. Then she went back inside. She didn't say anything to me. She didn't tell me to come in. The lead surveyor, his rank, I learned later, translated loosely to field cataloguer, began at the cooperative's main shed. They scanned the grain stores, the water reclamation unit, the soil beds, the livestock pens. Building to building, steady and methodical. They spoke to no one. 2 colonists came out to ask questions and were handed a single data tablet that read, "In clean trade standard, resource assessment in progress, voluntary integration review." Everyone on Seco knew what voluntary integration meant. It meant the Kethrai had found something worth taking, and the next visit would not be a request. They worked their way east along the valley road for 2 hours. I sat on the porch steps the whole time. Dutch slept behind me, in his spot against the wall where the shade held longest. The field cataloguer reached our homestead just past midday. He scanned the dryer shed from the road. He scanned the tool store, the water tank, the root cellar hatch. Then he came up the path toward the porch, and I stood, because my grandmother had taught me to stand when authority approached, even authority I didn't recognize. He scanned me. The rod pulsed once, green, brief, and he passed me without a word. He scanned the porch railing. Green, the front wall. Green, the grain bin beside the door. Green. Then he turned the rod toward Dutch. Dutch was on his side, the way he always lay in the heat. One paw tucked under his chin, tail flat on the boards, ribs rising and falling in the shallow rhythm I had watched 10,000 afternoons. The rod pulsed once, then it stopped. The cataloguer held the rod steady. I watched his face. The plated jaw tightened, the wide-set eyes narrowed to slits. He lifted the rod, adjusted something along the shaft, and aimed it at Dutch again. Nothing. No pulse. No color. The sensor array at the tip sat dark. He stepped back. Not fast. The Kethrai didn't do anything fast. But deliberately. The way you step back from a ledge you've just realized is higher than you thought. He spoke into a comm patch on his forearm. I didn't understand the words. I understood the tone. The second Kethrai arrived in under a minute. Taller than the cataloguer, with heavier plating across her shoulders and the bridge of her nose, a secondary scanner clipped to her belt, and rank insignia I couldn't read. She looked at me. She looked at the cataloger's rod. She looked at Dutch. Dutch's ear twitched. Just once. A small flick, the way it did when he was dreaming. My grandmother called it his running dream. He did not wake up. The commander unclipped her own scanner, smaller, handheld, with a display that faced only her, and held it out toward Dutch at arm's length. She watched the readout for a long time. I could not see the display from where I stood, but I could see the light it cast across her face, and the light was not green. She asked me one question. Her trade standard was exact, clipped, without accent. How long has this animal resided here? Since before me, I said. 14 years. She looked at Dutch. Dutch breathed. She closed the scanner. She did not clip it back to her belt. She held it in her fist, the way you hold something you are not sure you trust anymore. Then she turned to the cataloger and said 3 words I did not catch. He retrieved his survey rod, collapsed it to half length, and walked back down the path without looking at me. The commander stood on the bottom step for another moment. She was watching Dutch the way I had once seen a freighter pilot watch a storm wall on final approach. Not afraid, exactly, but carrying the quiet, specific recognition that something in front of her outscaled her instruments, her column, and everything she had been sent here to do. Dutch's tail moved once. A slow sweep across the boards, and back. Still asleep. The commander left. The column was packed and off ground in under 20 minutes. No annexation order, no integration forms, no second tablet, no explanation. 41 families stood in the road and watched 3 Kethrai transports lift from the dust and climb east until they were smaller than the grain chaff drifting in the afternoon light. My grandmother came out of the dryer shed. She walked up the porch steps, stood there for a while, hands in her apron, and looked at the sky where the transports had been. Then she went inside, filled Dutch's water bowl, the old ceramic one, the heavy one she had brought from Earth in her charter crate, and set it down beside his spot. Good, she said. That was all. I did not understand it that summer. I was 12, and the Kethrai had come and gone, and Dutch had slept through the whole afternoon, and the grain dryer still needed its Tuesday filter change, and none of it seemed like anything that required understanding. I understand now. The Kethrai survey system is thorough. They catalog atmospheric composition, mineral yield, defensive infrastructure, population biometrics, native and imported fauna. Every organism on a colony world receives a reading, a classification, and a threat index. Their system runs 11 tiers. Tier 11 covers a Dorvathi razor swarm in full emergence. Tier 11 covers an armed garrison at combat strength. Tier 11 is the highest designation their instruments were originally built to register. Dutch was not an 11. Dutch was the reason they built a 12th. A 14-year-old mutt, part shepherd, part something no one ever named, with one cloudy eye and hips that barely worked before noon. He never barked at the Kethrai. He never raised his head. He never had to. The colony was filed under a single classification I had to look up years later, long after I was old enough to access the Kethrai Public Survey Index. They do not translate the entry into trade standard. The closest approximation, according to the exolinguists at Relin University, is a compound glyph, 2 radicals pressed together into one mark. The first radical means viable. The second radical means do not. Dutch is 16 now. He sleeps on the same porch, in the same spot, against the same wall. His hips are worse, and his good eye is clouding over. And on cold mornings my grandmother carries him down the steps, because he won't ask for help, and she won't let him try alone. The Kethrai have not come back. The grain dryer runs on Tuesdays.